Welcome one and all to episode 32 of Titan Teatime. I'm Petter, and this is James.
Hi.
And today we're talking about the Marley arc of the Attack on Titan manga, taking a look back at it. It is volumes 23 to 26, chapters 91 to 106. And since this is a reread for both me and James, we will be talking about, potentially anything from the entire Attack on Titan manga today. So here's a spoiler warning for anyone who hasn't read all of it. And quick shout out to season 4, part 2 of the Attack on Titan anime, which is currently airing. I don't want to go into detail right now, but I think it's been really killing it so far.
Absolutely. I think they're doing an even better job than they did in part one. It helps that where they're starting off is pretty exciting and some big reveals right now.
True.
But yeah, I think they've kind of mastered their look and their style for the series. When I think in part one they were kind of mulling it over, or
Yeah.
just really at a fast pace to get this out, to get it out.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree. I can definitely agree there. Plus, I think the Marley arc was a bit, maybe they went through it in maybe a little too few episodes. Like they could have taken their time with it a bit more. But anyway, we did talk about the Marley arc back in 2020. It was in spring of 2020, right when the pandemic hit. It was between chapters 128 and 129 when we were still going through the chapters month by month. And so it's been almost 2 years since then. But here we are again talking about the Marley arc a second time. But two things are different comparing now to then. And one of them is, well, season 4 of the anime has come out since then. So we've actually seen the Marley arc animated, which we hadn't when we talked about this arc the first time. And the second, obviously, very big thing is that, well, the manga as a whole has finished. So we have much more of an understanding of where the story went, and we know much more about, well, we know everything that happens after the Marley arc as well, which we didn't last time. So I do still think that this can probably become a pretty different discussion compared to our previous one. Plus, I also imagine you and I have both grown as people since then, or so I hope at least.
Right. Absolutely.
I think we have.
I don't think we're going to be talking 2 hours, or actually longer than 2 hours.
That's our longest episode
to date.
No, actually, our longest is our final episode, our final chapter discussion.
That deserved to be.
Yeah.
Arc, which we love. I think I went a little too long in some of my.
Well, we both
analysis.
did, I think. I think that one is 2 hours 20 minutes, and then our final chapter discussion is, I think, 2.5 hours. So they're both almost as long, but yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
Let's not go past 2 hours this time.
I'll try.
Yes, but what's so cool about the Marley arc, in my opinion, is that it changes the perspective of the story completely while still maintaining and also very much building onto everything that had come before it in a really neat way. Like, I've said before many times that I think Isayama's decision to make the Marley arc the way he did it was a really ballsy decision. But I love him for it, because this arc, well, it remains my personal favorite arc in this story. And I don't know how many times I've read it, but it always blows me away whenever I read it. And
yeah,
I guess what I took away from, like, just before going into the topics and stuff, just kind of a general thing, something that I felt strongly reading through this arc today was that it kind of references in very important ways. It references things from pretty much all of the previous arcs, making them all feel really important. Which obviously they are important. Like, that's nothing new. But still, the fact that this arc, even though the perspective changed so drastically, it still makes all of the other arcs feel so crucial and like not forgotten in any way at all. I think it's just such a cool way that Isayama was able to pull that off, kind of.
and I think what this arc helps do is help us sympathize with the other side of the ocean, the other side of the debate, if you will.
Yeah.
Because, before that, we've always been on Team Humanity and then Team Parody, it turned out to be. And we obviously are very much in favor, at least a lot of us were in favor of Aaron, Levi, all the heroes on there. So having to go to a new place and say, okay, this is the actual enemy to the people on Parody, Aaron's enemy. It's hard to sympathize for these people, and you just see them as just bad, you know.
Right.
But when you have this perspective, you see them in war, you see them struggle and their own trials, and then you see them get attacked by Aaron and the Survey Corps. It makes you kind of sympathize for them, depending on the person. But for me, especially rereading it, I see their side of it, and it's hard to say who's the bad, who's the good, because there is no good or bad guy, and that's what I love about
Yeah.
the writing in Attack on Titan. There's never a clear cut bad guy
Right.
kind of a thing.
And I feel like especially from this arc onward,
Right,
like
especially from this arc
there
on.
was still a bit of it before this, but especially from here on out.
And of course, Aaron becomes like this devil, monster thing towards the end of the story. But
Mm.
at this point in time, you see Aaron killing these civilians, but yet Tiber declares war on parody. The world declares war on parody. So what else was he supposed to do? So it's a very interesting position to be in, a kind of a gray area.
Yeah.
And so I like how he set that all up, and I also like how it's kind of reminiscent of how this series kind of began, where it began in the perspective of these three young children,
Mm.
and their understanding of the world kind of being shattered in a way. And I think Gabby and Falco represent Aaron, Mikasa, and Armin in that way as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. 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 And on that, something that's really cool about the beginning of the Marley arc is how it, like the very beginning when we see Falco waking up, similarly to how Aaron woke up at the beginning of the whole story. And well, I guess waking up in and of itself is a pretty small thing, but I still think it's intentional. Plus, I think it's another intentional, or at least I assume intentional thing that happened right after he woke up was that he asked his brother why he was dressed that way, similarly to how Aaron asked Mikasa when her hair got so long. After he woke up. So I think that's it's really fun to see the story rhyme with itself that way, and there are more similarities I think between at least Falco and Aaron that can be made. How the kind of the I guess inferiority complex in a way, kind of that kind of thing.
Right. He definitely has that, and how there's a girl who's better than he is, more
Right.
skilled, and so he has to prove himself that he could stay with her. Because in Aaron's case, obviously love has hotly been debated for years within Attack on Titan fan base.
Yeah.
Hopefully the ending is a little more clear on that. But
Yeah.
I think he definitely did not want to be taken away from her.
No.
If it all helped. Although she would have gone with him no matter what, him not realizing that. Anyway, so I guess to that point, I have 2 points to make on that point.
Mhm.
The first one is I agree that Aaron has the similarities to Falco. He also has similarities with Gabby
Yes.
in that, I mean, one, I think Gabby just kind of looks like him.
Oh yeah, I
In a
think
way.
that was
It's
intentional.
the eyes,
I think
right?
Isayama did that, and like the eyebrows and the eyes. Yeah.
Eyebrow, yeah. But two, it's just her ever moving forward mentality and just gung ho. Yes, they have different personalities in the long run, but also their kind of revenge aspect is similar.
Yeah, and just seeing their city get destroyed by invading Titans,
Right.
like that.
Absolutely. But the other point I was going to make is just about the beginning in general. I know I've said this before, but I need to reiterate. It's confusing. Like, it's a bit jarring, I should say. You get into it because you just get the end of the previous arc. Our enemies on the other side of the ocean. Okay, and then you just go into this whole new world. And when I first read it, I was like, what is going on? Like, is that Aaron? Is he's a girl now? And wait, is that Reiner's child? Like, I don't even know what's going on.
When you went into and reading this for the first time, you had missed a couple of things before it, hadn't you? Like your very first time, right?
I did. I was gonna mention it because I feel like I bring it up every time, but it's true. I had missed the Return of Shiganshina. Well, not all the Return of Shiganshina. I had read up to, I think, Armin falling down after getting burned to death.
So you had missed the whole basement reveal.
Right. Well, no, I saw the basement reveal.
Okay.
So it was Armin falling down from that point, like the whole decision, Midnight Sun, that decision onward.
From there. Okay, I see.
Before that, I didn't know.
Oh yeah, so the whole Uprising arc plus the beginning of the Return to Genshin arc, you had missed that.
Correct.
Ah, I see. Gotcha.
And
Ooh.
going into Marley, I thought, oh man, I must be missing some characters that were introduced previously, and now I'm completely lost.
Mm.
Gosh dang it! And then I go and see season two and or season three part one. I'm like, wait a minute, I missed nothing. Why? So
Oh.
anyway, but going back and reading it, it is clear. I mean, not just now, but years previous when I went back and read it, I was like, oh, okay,
Mm-mm.
I understand. This
Right.
is a new setting.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I remember your like 2 years ago, well, almost 2 years ago when we had this discussion. It was kind of a new revelation for you because you had read this arc for the first time as like one coherent arc kind of for the first time, I think. And
Yeah,
so you had like a brand new understanding and appreciation for it, which I was very happy for, of course. Uh,
absolutely. I
mm,
I think when I was reading it, I was, well, where's Aaron? Where's Mikasa? Like, I don't care about these people. Why why are we here?
mm,
And going back and reading it and knowing that they would appear eventually and whatnot,
mm,
I was able to enjoy it much more. And I think this is definitely one of the best arcs in the series. I mean, there's so many good arcs, but this is definitely one of the best ones with
mm,
so many great moments and reveals. So
yeah.
yeah, that this reread just reinforced that for me.
Awesome, yeah, and like I think this arc really does deserve at least one reread. Like obviously depending on how big a fan you are of the series, but I do think one reread or I guess rewatch of the anime is good for this arc, especially just because it is so different and kind of jarring at first.
Yeah. I think a lot of the seasons or a lot of the arcs from Marley on are probably ones that people are gonna need to rewatch in order to process completely.
True, yeah, I think you're right.
But anyway,
Yes, but well, before we move on with the rest of the topics, I just want to give a quick little apology in advance to anyone who watched our old Marley arc discussion, in case I happen to repeat anything that I said back then, which I'm sure I will. I know
oh
there
yeah,
are a couple points that I actively decided not to take note of when I went through here because I did remember having talked about those on the previous one. Although I do know
hmm
there's probably also going to be ones where I will be repeating myself. But hey, that's fine. It was 2 years
oh, of
ago.
course,
Who
right.
really cares?
And those are the important parts. Like those are the parts that really matter to you. So it's
Right,
totally
right.
fine.
Mm, mm.
But if you want my full thoughts, more in depth, although I say this, but I don't know if I really agree with myself. I haven't listened to. I probably should have done that going into that. But
Right. Yeah, I felt like I should have too.
maybe I disagree with some of the things I said, but I don't think my enjoyment for the arc has changed.
Mm,
So if you want a really in depth look of both mine and Petter's thoughts, I guess go back to our previous Marley discussion.
yeah.
Check that out.
May of 2020. Uh,
Before we knew how the story ended, mind you.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. We were still like 3.5 volumes from the or 2.5 volumes from the end. Oh, whatever. We were quite a bit away from the end anyway.
Hmm.
Anyway, something I really liked in the first chapter of this Marley arc here, how Gabby kind of, well, she twists Maggot's arm, or metaphorically, she twists his arm, when
Yeah.
she kind of gets him to agree with her going to take on the armored train. And like I like it. Well, obviously it's great to see Gabby. Well, it's it's early character building for Gabby, which is nice, obviously. But I feel like for
Hmm.
Magath, it shows that he cares about this Eldian girl, and I guess it's not that clearly. Obviously,
Right.
his caring for Eldians becomes far clearer much later in the story. But
Hmm.
I think even here there is a slight little hint toward it where when he does eventually give in, I can't remember exactly what he says, but when he says like fine or whatever he says, his eyes are concealed in the shadow of his helmet. When he says that line, which to me makes it seem like he's maybe a little bit kind of sad over putting her in danger like that. At least that's how I read that now, knowing his character better.
I think it's definitely a gradual um, liking for their people and realizing, they are just human, not these devils. Or, well, I guess in his eyes, we're all devils.
Oh yeah, right, true. But actually, I'd like to slightly disagree with it being a gradual liking for like he gradually starts liking them more. I think it's a gradual acceptance of the fact that he likes them more. Like I think he because he's been working with Eldians for over 20 years. I think that growing more fond of them has happened already before the story or before his story begins. I think what he struggles with at this point until his death is to admit to himself and to others that they are not devils or that they are just like any other people. At least that's how I read his character.
That's fair, and that's what I was implying as
Cool.
well.
Oh, gotcha.
Not necessarily that he, all of a sudden started liking them.
Mm.
It's definitely, a gradual thing, and then realizing that I care for these. I care for these people,
Yeah.
and I feel terrible about the way I treated them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Oh, I love Magath.
you can see him treating the Eldians, particularly the warriors, differently.
Yeah.
As time goes on, especially compared to the other people who are not so open-minded.
Absolutely. Yeah, Magath is definitely a different type of Marleyan. Like during the kind of the chaos in Liberia at the end of this arc, when he finds Falco and Gabby, he's clearly concerned for both of them. Which is also another one of those signs that he cares for them, and also when they're on the train back home from the battle at Fort Slava, he allows the Eldians to have a party in the other wagon, which is also cool of him. But I guess comparing him when he is concerned for Falco and Gabby during the midst of the chaos in Liberia. As I said, it's clear that he is concerned about them, but it's like it's nothing too much, I guess. Like other than it being clear enough, I suppose. But if I'm not mistaken, when he finds Gabby in the next arc, when they're in Shiganshina and the war starts there, and when he eventually comes face to face with Gabby, and he because they had been separated for a while. If I'm not mistaken, doesn't he hug her then, or am I making that up?
I feel like I have that memory somewhere.
Right, and if that is true, I guess I should have looked this up. But I obviously it's like seeing that like that's a clear progression for him. Obviously, we're not here to talk about the War for Parity arc today, but it's I guess the comparison is I guess I wanted to make that comparison with the Liberio scene.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe we could gather our Magath discussion here since we're on him a bit. I have one other thing on him anyway, and it's that he points out that the statue of Helos, which represents the Marleyan soul, is hollow. And I just think it's so cool for, Magath as a Marleyan with a high standing within the military. Like he has those kinds of doubts about his nation. I just think like it's another thing that really makes his character feel much richer and well-rounded and deeper.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also like how he feels like he's the only competent person in that military.
Yeah.
At least in that room, when they're discussing after the 4-year war. He's saying, hey, look, we can't do this or have our army be based on the Titans anymore. It's just not going to fly. No pun intended. Like the world is, much more advanced now and is going to continue to get more advanced. So I like how he brings that at the forefront. And then the other guys are just like, yeah, I guess so. But sure, we don't have a Titan that can fly.
Yeah.
I mean, at the time, that was obviously, him sounding lazy or just relying on the Titans too much. But now you're just kind of like, oh, well, maybe that was foreshadowing. Anyway,
yeah, right, yeah.
Point is,
it's funny.
I like how capable Magath is, and like you said, he kind of pieces together that maybe his nation of Marley is not as
great,
true to their word, or great. Yeah, there you go. Not as great as maybe the people believe.
For sure. Back a little bit more to the stuff at Fort Slava. When Reiner attacked the fort, he jumped down from the airship and he started attacking the fort. he got shot with some of their anti-Titan artillery, and being shot in the arm, he took note of the fact that it actually pierced even the armored Titan's armor.
Mm-hmm.
But despite having learned that, only moments later, he threw himself in front of Zeke when he was taking fire from the ships. And well, sure, we know that at this point in Reiner's life, he is feeling suicidal. Obviously, this isn't a great part of his life. So I guess with that in mind, I guess you could see it as being something like he doesn't really care if he dies or survives or something like that. But to me, it also reminds me of, well, the reliable and helpful and dependable and respected person that he was to his fellow trainees on Paradis, and that he also is still to the warrior candidates like Gabby and Falco and the others. He still is that kind of person to them, and I think he was that person to Zeke, at least there in the battle. Which I don't know. I feel like Reiner's deeds often go kind of at least characters in the story don't show much gratitude to him a lot of the time. Well, maybe it depends, but
You don't think so? I think within the Marley arc, you see a good amount of gratitude for him. Even in the flashbacks, although I guess it's more like, you got us into this mess, you better get us out, and I guess he tries to answer that call.
Well, to be fair, it's not entirely Reiner's fault that they lost. Well, it is. Well. Speaking of the fact that Marcel got eaten by Ymir, I guess. Like, I don't think that whole is like we can't blame all that on Reiner.
Oh yeah. I mean, not completely, and who knows if they were going to be able to act quick enough once Ymir's Titans grabbed Marcel. Like, would they have been able to pry him out of her hands?
Yeah, like all three of them ran away from there. Like, sure, Reiner may have ran first, but all of them ran.
Yeah, I mean,
Reiner
was the first to dart, and that was the reason the other two darted.
Yeah. Like, I get
Reiner
it.
had stayed, if they all three had stayed, then maybe they could have quickly. I mean, it had been very quickly come up with a plan to do it. I mean, I'm not saying it would have happened. I'm just saying that I understand where Annie was coming from, but she's also to blame for running. So
Right.
It's just anyway. I did not mean to talk about that. I didn't even have that in my notes, but there it was.
It's all good. Well, speaking of that, I feel like Annie is a bit unfair to Reiner. Obviously, the situation is shit to begin with, so obviously it's just a very complicated and bad situation in general. But I do think Annie is a bit unfair to him there. Plus, I think Porco gives Reiner a whole lot of shit, not only in this arc, but also after it.
Oh, yeah.
Which I don't think is fair at all.
No.
So, like, I guess maybe that's been kind of on my mind a lot since I read this arc today. So maybe that's why I said what I said. But I do think I stand by it to that extent at least.
Yeah, I guess just about Porco, I get that's his personality, but man, take a chill pill. It's okay.
He's such a salty salmon for something that happened 9 years ago.
Right. I mean, in the end, he basically sacrifices his life for Reiner, which is touching. But
yeah,
it's just so sad to put a guy down who is really, really depressed and PTSD. To keep putting him down like that. But anyway, I understand that's his character, and I do think Galliard cared for Reiner. It's just, he was, like you said, very salty, and it does kind of rub you the wrong way sometimes. Yeah. Not to say I don't like Galliard. I think he's pretty chill.
Right. I mean, he has his own.
Yeah, not chill. That was the wrong thing.
Chill is the wrong word, but I get you. But he has his own. Obviously, he has his own sorrows that he carries with his brother having died. So, like, everyone deals with that type of grief differently and stuff like that, of course.
Mm-hmm. So, if you allow me to go back real quick to that scene or the first battle, I guess. I love the Gabby bobbing scene. I think that's just one of the most creative scenes that Isayama has come up with. It's disturbing too because it's using people's, I guess, unwillingness to shoot children. against them. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, that's so wrong, but it's also hilarious and
Yeah.
but just bad. It's dark humor.
I mean,
Um,
plus it's about child soldiers. Like the very beginning
right.
of the arc shows us children soldiers, and that in and of itself
Hmm.
is also just really dark.
Yeah. So, I mean, the scene itself is or that whole scene is dark, but
Mm,
that scene in particular, I just thought
mm.
is a funny Gabby moment
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
as far as war crimes go. Uh,
Yeah.
but no, and then I just want to mention Marley as a country. I didn't think too much about it other than I knew what they were doing. You know, the prejudice they put against the Eldians was not cool, but they really are a terrible country. Like terrible as in they basically took everything that Eldia was doing and just repeated it.
Yeah.
You know, the world conquest, extending their borders, beating down other nations,
Mm-hmm.
and then suppressing a people. Which I mean, it turned out to be the Eldians themselves, but still, it's quite ironic that the people that used to be oppressed were now the oppressors.
Yeah.
And you know, I guess there's a sort of a reason for that. You know, being the atonement for their sins, but you know, the fact that Marley turned out to be just as bad as the Eldian Empire is wild and
Yeah.
something that I didn't really think about. But it's true. You know, the only reason like Marley was that way was because of the Eldian power,
Mm,
and they were very corrupt for it.
totally.
So we learned that the Tiber family just kind of let the Marley Empire go, like let them do or rule themselves, I guess you could say,
Uh-huh.
and they chose militarism. Was that part of the Tiber plan to let them weaponize their own people? You know, like it's like yeah, sure, it makes sense. Like the Eldian Empire did the same thing. You could do it too. Like I thought you would want to stop that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've usually looked at the Tiber family as having a similar, or at least the previous generations of the Tiber family, as having had a similar ideology as King Fritz, since
That's well, right.
they supposedly worked together to put an end to the Great Titan War.
But if you are, or if you regret the terrible things that you did in the past,
Hmm.
would you want to stop that from still happening? Because the Marleyans using the
Fair.
Eldians is basically what they were doing before. So why just sit back and allow it to happen? Yes, you're trying to uh, recompense for all of the terrible things that have happened in the past,
Hmm.
but allowing them to keep using the Eldians as weapons, it's as if nothing changed.
I mean, I agree completely, but I don't think either of us. Well, we obviously don't agree with King Fritz's ideology,
Hmm.
and if
I'll get to that later, but
it, there's always something to say about that. um,
always.
but no, I think maybe it's not like a complete maybe it's not completely identical to his, but I do think the earlier generations of the Tiber family had a very similar ideology about all of that. And sure, it's terrible of them to let everything keep going as it is, but so was all of the kings on parody, where they were also well, they sat back and let everything happen as it did without interfering.
Right.
So I think it in a way they're completely the same.
I think the Tiber family might be more similar to the lords and nobles that weren't technically subjects of Ymir that came with
Hmm.
Fritz to parody. Because I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the original Tiber families, yeah, they share that mentality, but they were just lazed about. They were happy living the life of luxury, you know, behind the scenes.
Yeah.
That just screams to me similar to what the parody nobles were like in
Fair.
their
Yeah.
walls. So
Hmm.
anyway, I like the aspect of the Tiber family and the twist that they're the ones controlling the Marleyan government.
Hmm.
That's really interesting. But at the same time, I like to, or I can't help but point out the terribleness and then the flaws that are within
Yeah.
their logic and just the the country in its out of itself.
Hmm. Yeah. Absolutely.
Shockingly, Marley is really large. Like the current like that they showed a map and they had Africa completely blotted out, plus parts of Europe, like the most of
Mm,
our Western Europe.
yeah,
Is that the current borders of the Marleyan Empire?
I think so. At
Do you
least
realize how big Africa
I
is?
know
That's
it's massive.
ridiculous.
I know. Well, I imagine the Eldian Empire may have had all that ground
You're right.
before, and
Yeah,
and they were conquering for almost 2,000 years.
thousands of years. Well, you're right. 2000.
Uh, and so for Marley then to kind of more or less, I guess, take over that afterward, uh,
And then keep
kind of makes sense.
keep going because
Yeah.
even Magath mentions that the people are very excited to read the newspaper where their borders are extended,
Hmm.
so that they kept going.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, But anyway, just
Hmm.
having that much land, it seems ridiculous to me. Do you even have that many people to fill all that land?
I mean, the
I mean,
more
they have a million. They have a million in the army in
the
their military.
well, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just saying the more land you get, the more people you, I guess, gain. Like people that already live there, you get those
Uh-huh.
people as
That's a fair
part of
point.
your new country or as part of the country.
True.
Uh,
That makes sense.
I think. I want to give some praise to the scene or to the conversation between Reiner and Falco on the train ride home. Just
Yeah.
such an intense and emotional moment for both of them, really. And I also really liked how that moment was, well, both Reiner and Falco recalled that moment in chapter 136, which was in the final volume. So it was nice to see that moment, well, remembered for them there. And it was technically it was already recalled in this arc. Just later in this arc, it was also recalled. But it is a really important moment, I think, for between those two characters and about their goal to keep Gabby safe.
Absolutely. I love that whole train scene. There's a lot of uh, funny but also emotional aspects to it, like
Hmm.
cheering on Gabby and everything. That's great.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean, it's one of Colt's best moments is on that train.
yeah, yeah. He doesn't have a whole lot of moments, but
No.
that's his one of his best ones.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it was very well done in the anime as well. But
Hmm.
that scene with Falco and Reiner, I really like because it shows that to me it shows while Reiner understood uh, his role as a warrior, he also knows that this is a living nightmare, and I want
Yeah.
to save a person I care about, his cousin,
Hmm.
um, from this same fate, and the fact that he was able to express that to Falco, in kind of a sneaky way. I really like that writing. It
Yeah.
was very good.
Yeah. Right. It's so good. Like he feels so intimidating at like what that one
Hmm.
part in that conversation, and then it kind of flips, and you understand that he actually feels the same way as Falco.
Right.
It's so good, so good, so good.
Yeah. And also after the train scene where they're getting off and Falco's looking behind him. He's like, "Whoa, what does he mean?" And then Gabby's just like, "What are you planning?" I wish that was animated. It was so
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
I love that part.
Yeah, there's a few of those really good bits in the Marley arc that were sadly cut out. Sadly.
Yeah, but no, it's good, great scene.
Absolutely, absolutely is. And while we're talking about Falco, there's one thing that, well, I don't know how much I've talked about it. Well, one thing I have said about Falco in the past, I know at least, is that I haven't enjoyed his character as much after the Marley arc, which
Right.
I probably still stand by, even though
Yeah.
it's still good. I don't dislike
Right.
it. However, this is this is a different nitpick that I'm about to mention that I can't remember if I have said before or not. Anyway,
Hmm.
it's about him. Well, he seems way less brainwashed compared to a lot of the other characters in Marley
Oh.
or from Marley, and at least I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, he's just a little kid. He's like 12-year-old kid, which also kind of adds to that. Like, why would he be so open-minded? I guess. And he's never been to parody
Interesting.
Reiner's been to parody. He should have some kind of perspective. Even Zeke and Peak have been there to a degree, but Falco, I don't really feel like there is, or at least, well, before today, I didn't feel like there was much reason for Falco to be the way he is. It almost felt a little bit Mary Sue-ish to me,
Huh.
the way that he, well, seems to be much less brainwashed than a lot of the other characters with similar backgrounds, kind of.
Yeah.
But something I realized today, when I reread the book was, so something that kind of made me change my mind on this is because of the family that he comes from.
Right. That's what I'm thinking.
Right, because we know that his uncle was part of the restorationists,
Hmm.
and maybe potentially, obviously we don't know, but maybe there were even more relatives that may have been a part of that. Obviously we don't know for sure, but at least there was that one guy, his uncle, but potentially more. But regardless, we have reason to think that the Grice family may generally think a little bit more outside of the box than most other Eldians in Marley do. And
Right.
so even though at this point they're trying to repay slash appease Marley by having two of their sons as
Hmm.
warrior candidates, like they are kind of licking Marley's ass with that. But even still, I can still easily imagine Falco's parents having talked to him about those sorts of things throughout his upbringing. Potentially, but I think it's a likely thing. So I guess all that said, I think it makes sense for Falco to be as open minded as he is, and I'm very happy that I guess came to that realization today. And I don't know, maybe this is something obvious for a lot of people, but I guess for those who had the similar thoughts that I did before, I think this works as a great explanation for Falco's character.
As you could probably tell by my awing and humming, I didn't ever think about that with Falco's kid. Like, well, the whole he's not as brainwashed as the other kids,
Ah,
kind of point. But now that you say that, you're right. He is a little more open minded and doesn't seem to have drunken the Kool Aid as deeply, so to speak.
yeah.
But I also agree with the fact that I do think his family is a little more open minded, or at least not as gung ho on becoming or being brainwashed, if you will. For example,
Yeah.
you look at Reiner's mom and their family, where Gabby comes from.
Mm.
Obviously, they were very much, oh yeah, Eldians are scum and we are scum, but we can be
Mm.
better scum and it's gonna be great.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it which is very sad, a very sad mentality, but they were pushing that very very hard. Whereas I could see the Grice family not being that, I guess, deep into it.
Mm.
And then obviously, yes, they put up their sons for to be warrior candidates. So they had to do what they needed to do. But
Right.
I don't think it automatically means that they were gonna start believing all the propaganda and whatnot.
Precisely. Yeah. Right. They're putting up that front, but I definitely feel like when they're at home and when they're speaking quietly and they're in their house, maybe they aren't as much like that.
Yeah. Not saying they're secretly leading a resistance right now.
No,
It's
no,
just
I don't think so either. No.
they're just not as deep in the waters,
Right.
if you will.
Exactly. So yeah.
So that's a very interesting point.
Hmm. But I guess speaking, I guess kind of on that topic, and but for the Brown family, uh, something I also just really need to bring to the forefront a little bit is Reiner's monologue at the dinner table when he's talking about his time on Parody, and
Hmm.
it breaks my heart every time I read that. And also the anime did it really well too. So like just
Yeah.
seeing and hearing that. But well, none of the descriptions in his monologue there are actually, well, none of them is like, none of it is particularly negative. It just, well, he describes it. He describes humans in general. Is all that he really does, and deep down, I think he knows that as well. But in front of his family, I think he feels more or less kind of forced to give it a negative angle.
You know, I don't the way I read it, and I know I feel like I'm in the minority on this, and that's fine. Like it doesn't really make the scene bad for or good for me.
Oh,
I think it's a great scene either way.
uh-huh.
But the way I interpret it is he's not necessarily saying it as bad things, but or how am I trying to phrase this? Like it's not like some strange second personality thing coming out here. I think he's purposely saying these things and putting him in that angle, but in a way that's kind of, but it's like cynical. It's like, oh yeah, they're really terrible monsters, you know, who would do that kind of thing? But he's just saying normal human things. He's like, it's like he's being sarcastic
Oh, you think it's
in a way.
sarcasm?
Yes, in a way, and that's why they're
Hmm.
all kind of like, wait, what are you talking about? And that's why his mom comes in and is like, no, 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 they're devils.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Okay, that's interesting. Because I mean, because yeah,
but I know that's a minority thought.
I mean, I don't. I actually, I'm not sure. I haven't talked about this specific scene with too many people, so I guess I don't know, like the statistics. But
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know if this is Texas. I feel like I'm in the minority here.
I guess I mean maybe because really like I feel like it's him saying it basically the way he experienced it, but he is trying his best to give it a negative angle because he knows that that's what his family wants to hear. Because he says like those days were the worst years of my life is something he says afterward. But when he's just in the moment, kind of describing the people that he met there, none of it is necessarily bad.
I feel like he's just feeling guilty because, you know, they're just normal people, and he lists
Yeah.
all these things. I don't think he's like trying to put up a front per se. I really think he's saying all this in almost like tongue in cheek, and then he's like, you know what, forget I mentioned anything,
Oh.
because he knows that they can't accept that.
Okay. Okay. I mean that's fair. That's fair. I'm not going to agree with you, but
I understand.
but
I
I can
understand.
absolutely respect that
Hmm.
take on it for sure. I like it too.
I'm glad you respect it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I respect your take as well.
Nice.
I guess since we're talking about Reiner,
Hmm?
flashback, you know, it reveals a lot, but you know, it shows Reiner's growth. I think that's definitely one of the most gut wrenching things,
Hmm.
all the way up to the gun in his mouth.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, that is sometimes that's hard to read. You know, like just
Yeah. It is.
those feelings can be quite familiar in a way. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not like, oh, I feel like killing myself all the time, but I feel like there are people who struggle with the guilt that they've experienced in their lives.
Mm.
I don't think many people are war criminals, but I do think there are things that we have PTSD about or guilt about in our lives,
Mm.
and it's hard to overcome those. But as we see in this scene, there's always something that makes it worth that we keep going up forward.
Yeah.
And, you know, for Reiner, it was Falco and Gabby, like the children.
Hmm.
That was his reason to keep going, and you know, he found other reasons as well. But sometimes it just takes that little thing, that little spark of hope to help you
Mm.
keep going. And I really love the tragedy behind it, but also this little spark of hope that comes from Falco.
Yeah. I mean, 100%. I completely echo everything that you said there. Like, wow. Yeah. Just the tragedy is so well made, but then that beauty at the end when he realizes that he does have people to keep living for.
Right.
But yeah, like the transition leading up to it is also really, really good with seeing
Oh
him,
yeah.
like he's readying the rifle just step by step, and then suddenly you just flip the page and bam, oh, that image, very powerful, very very powerful.
Mm. Real quick, that scene where, you know, he's talking to Aaron in the flashback. He says, "You're gonna exterminate every last Titan, right? I know you can do it."
Hmm.
Like, well, I mean, I guess he's right.
Yeah, he was,
He did it.
he was right. Of course, Reiner was right. My boy's always
Of
right.
course.
Yeah. But well actually moving back or just hopping back a little bit before this whole manga ended, I think I was saying at numerous times that Reiner would survive the story. Like that was my standing prediction regarding his I
Hmm.
guess uh status at the end by the end of the story because I viewed him like him and Levi I always viewed them as kind of survivors. They're the guys that will survive pretty much regardless.
Yeah.
Um, and I can't remember if I said this or not, but another thought that I had, like, if he wouldn't survive, if I would be wrong about my prediction that Reiner would survive, then
Hmm.
I was thinking that Gabby would be the one to inherit his Titan. And so, in the first scene of Volume 24, which is the second book of this arc, there is a scene between Gabby and Reiner, which is the main thing that I'm sad for about the anime adaptation, because they skipped this scene, and this is one of my favorite scenes, and it's the one that I'm the saddest
Yeah.
for being for not being in the anime, and it's where Gabby tells Reiner that if she inherits his Titan, then he will live on in her, and she will be able to understand the burdens that he carries that are too painful to put into words. And I used to think that if Reiner wouldn't make it to the story, then well, yeah, then Gabby would inherit the armor. Thus, kind of this whole conversation that they had in this scene becoming kind of a prophecy for that. And
Mm.
in a very bittersweet kind of way, it would also mean that Reiner and Falco would have failed in protecting Gabby, as would have been their goal. And
Mm-hmm.
I think I would have rather enjoyed that if that would have been the case. Obviously, I'm really happy Reiner did survive to the end of the story,
Yeah.
but I think this would have been, or could have been, another really kind of just tragically satisfying end for all of these characters. Obviously, it would have required a completely different ending than the one we got, but
Mm-hmm.
um, just the idea of Gabby inheriting her cousin's memories and being able to understand him better. I think just the thought of that appeals to me. And I guess that, like, it's that line from that scene that I love so, like, especially.
I agree. I really like that aspect of Gabby's desires. You can tell she loves and looks up to Reiner so much.
Yeah.
And you know what's something I don't think I really or truly understood until this past episode in the anime?
Hmm?
Gabby eventually understands what Reiner felt like.
Yeah.
Not completely to the extent that what all the terrible things he did, but Gabby took the life of uh, someone's, I guess, sister, and that she discovered that these people are actually human, not devils. And so, in that way, she was able to experience what Reiner experienced without inheriting the Titan. So I think that's kind of foreshadowing in a way that
Mm,
she
mm.
was able to do that.
True.
Um,
True.
and yeah, it's also nice that she's alive.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Stuff from the flashback chapters, perhaps. I think it's great how in this arc, not only through the flashbacks do we get to see Bertolt's perspective on the, well,
Hmm.
breaking through the wall and all that, but also much later, or well, a bit later in the arc, we get to see Armin in the form of the Colossal Titan causing similar destruction in Liberia. And I think it's just so
Yeah,
interesting how, well, before this arc, we had never really seen the perspective of any Colossal Titan in that kind of way. But in this arc, we got two different ones. And also, well, obviously, with Armin's, Armin is thinking about Bertolt in the moment that when he is doing it. And that obviously is, well, very nice moment as well, interesting moment at least.
for sure.
But yeah, like in the scene where Bertolt crushes or breaks through the wall, afterward when he when Dinah Fritz's Titan approaches him, and just but it ultimately just walks past him. It's so cool to know now that that was technically Aaron's doing, supposedly.
Yeah.
Like he needed Bertolt alive for later so that his life could save Armin's, essentially.
You know, when you're reading it before reading the ending, you think, "Oh, well, she was an abnormal Titan, right?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, well, she was guided by Aaron. So does that mean all abnormal Titans were affected by Aaron? I don't know. That seems a little too grand of a scope. I mean, who knows how many abnormals there were?
Oh yeah.
I mean, because we never get explained why those exist anyway.
That's true. That's true. Actually, who knows? I
Yeah.
it's possible that you're onto something.
Uh,
Like, I definitely, definitely maybe.
but yeah, no, that is such a twist that I still debate, is that a needed twist? But I understand the fact that, yeah, you let Berto live so he could eventually give Armin the
Mm,
colossal Titan power. So I understand that, and also Carla being eaten eventually. uh, does, I guess, motivate Aaron to keep pushing forward. So,
Absolutely, yeah. It's a sad, sad situation.
but no, I like that flashback, and again, I think it's uh, well, it opens up a lot into the Warriors' life and how they got inside the walls and everything. Questions that
Mm.
we didn't have answers to for the longest time.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was great to see all that unfold. And it makes you appreciate Reiner all the much more. I mean,
Hmm.
honestly, that's that all the leading up all the way to that scene with the gun is kind of what makes, at least made me respect Reiner's character so much, or at least his character development, his character growth.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not saying, hey, you be suicidal and I'll start liking you. Like that's not what I'm trying to say.
No, no, of
What I'm
course.
saying is his character growth, his arc
Hmm.
is just so much more detailed than it was previously, and
Yeah.
it's very well done.
Yeah, just understanding where he comes from,
Yeah,
because it's hard to.
relatable in a
Yeah,
way.
right. Yeah, exactly, and it's hard or maybe even impossible, obviously, to relate to a character that you don't know
Oh,
where they come from.
oh yeah, yeah,
So,
yes, yeah,
so
yeah,
yeah, I think it was very much needed, and obviously it was very well made as well.
absolutely. I mean, again, I know I said this earlier, but it takes the whole there aren't any bad guys in this.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's kind of gray. It keeps going with that because I think for a lot of people, Reiner kind of became this enemy number one.
Yeah.
Why won't you die type of a thing.
Absolutely, for a while.
In the
Yeah.
Marley arc, and you're like, wow, I kind of sympathize for this guy. Although there are some people who are like, nope, not happening. My heart is closed. It's like, all
Yeah.
right, you do you.
Yeah.
Just so you know, Aaron learned to understand Reiner as well.
Mm,
So
yeah.
if Aaron can do it, you can do it too.
Yes. Be more like Aaron. Or wait, maybe not.
Well, that's hard to say. He has some good qualities, and then some not great ones either. But that's what makes him great as an MC.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Totally. And another little thing that I may have mentioned before, like in some previous episode, possibly in our episode from 2 years ago, um, about how Isayama worked Flock into at least one of the scenes in the flashback,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and like kind of made it seem as if though he was always there. Like he established him as like he was technically always there training with the rest of them, which obviously it's fun. And I thought it was yeah I like that, and I guess makes me wish that he had actually been there.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh well.
So remind me again how that letter from Aaron got to Parody. Did Yelena's people grab it
I
somehow?
don't think it got to parody. I think the Cervicor already had a bunch of people hidden in Marley.
Oh, they were already in Marley.
I think a bunch of people were. I mean, obviously the airship came from Marley, or sorry, it came from Parody, but there were already people in Marley before the airship arrived.
But they read the letter, and Hanji was there, and she was on the airship.
True. I guess they may have passed
So,
it on. The people in Marley may have passed it on to the island. I guess they must have. Um,
but in that flashback, everyone was there. Like there's a scene where they're all reading the letter, and everyone is basically there.
oh, that's true.
I think a few months pass, or at least a month passes after that letter is passed.
That's very, very
Uh,
possible. Mm.
so I think it gets to parody somehow. I'm not exactly sure, or maybe I think the anime implies that Jean is actually, chilling around, walking around Marley,
Yeah.
and so maybe he picked up the letter. I'm not sure.
Or all of those people were in Marley at the time, and then Hanji went back to Parody to fetch the ship. Maybe.
Within a month, I guess that's possible.
Yeah, could have been something like that.
Hmm.
But yeah, you're right. I totally forgot about that panel where we see all of them reading the letter. That is a funny panel. Like,
Yeah,
why
it's a
would
fun. Yeah.
everyone read the letter at the same time? That's not practical.
I feel like they've done that a couple times
Yeah.
in the show where they read some sort of note all together, or whatever, whether it be from Irvin or
Yeah.
Levi or whatever.
Right.
Um, so we get the scene where Kiyomi comes into play, and I know she's such a
Mm.
minor character, but I like that she's an example of. Same with Yelena Oyonkapo, which Oyonkapo deserves a world. He's such a great person.
Yeah.
Love him.
Mm.
But Kiyomi is also great. She's an example of some people in the world believing in human rights in a way,
Yeah.
and kind of seeing the Eldian people, especially these young children, as just children who make mistakes.
Yeah.
And not the scum. Who knows what would happen to him, or him being Udo, if he had spilt wine on someone else.
Mm.
So yeah, but yes,
Yeah.
she ultimately did it for her and her people's gain. Like, she was obviously trying to get the resource in parity and
Yeah.
get some sort of leg up. But I genuinely think she did not want to see Eldians discriminated because of their bloodline.
Yes.
I think
Mm.
there was that part of it, and that's something that she eventually realizes a little more and does feel a little guilty about, in a way, using it towards the end. But I just
Mm.
I like her character, and I like her introduction here.
Absolutely. Like, if anything, this introduction, kind of solidifies her standing for Eldians as people, as humans.
Right.
I think you can think what you will about her drooling over Parady's resources in the next arc.
Yeah.
But I think that's a different thing. Like, you can't. I like those two things shouldn't necessarily be put against each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can be greedy and think well of people at the same time.
I mean, obviously she was putting her people first.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think human rights was a thing that she cared about, unlike most of these people, apparently.
Yeah, right. Definitely. And about Willie, a little thing I got was how he knew that the world would only rally together if he delivered the speech that he delivered,
Right.
and thus putting himself in lethal danger. And I really love how that mirrors Erwin's sacrifice, where he knew that his plan would only work if he was there risking his life as well in the end. And both of them ultimately die, but they die succeeding, I guess, in a sense.
Yeah.
Which I think, very respectable characters in similar ways.
I like Willie. I like that, like you said, he had the guts to put himself out there and understand that he was going to get killed probably, but he needed to do this in order for what he believed in, whatever. I do think that the Tiber mentality in general I have issues with, but Willie in and of himself, I respect the man he was.
Yeah.
And I thought he was a very well-written character for the short amount of screen time that he had.
Totally.
And obviously, the voice actor just nails it in the anime.
Yes, so good.
Absolutely fantastic. The speech, reading the speech, you could practically hear it. It's just so powerful. And you kind of get pumped yourself, but you're like, wait a minute. well, you're getting pumped in a couple ways. One, you're getting pumped because of what Willie is saying, but then two, you're getting pumped because Aaron is, shaking hands with Reiner and about to go ballistic. But yeah, so Willie is a fascinating character that some could see as an antagonist in a way. But it's that gray area again.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah. But since we're here on this subject, it's now time to talk about James's grievances against Carl Fritz.
Let's go!
So my new grievance.
Oh, a new one.
Is something that we kind of mentioned in the previous discussion, but I decided to save it for the Marley arc because it's more applicable.
Okay.
Why were the Eldians left in Marley? Like, why didn't they all go to parody? I don't buy the excuse. Oh, we couldn't fit them all. No. You had plenty of space.
Yeah, you had plenty of space, but there was also Eldians spread all across the world. I think it would be like the space on the island. I don't think is the issue. I think is gathering them all up to begin with. That's the issue.
He has the founding titan. How hard is it to calling everybody, walk over to this place now?
Walking across continents. No, that's not practical.
Just wait for them.
No, I don't think they had the time.
What do you mean they didn't have the time? I mean, look, you know how long it took to build the walls? I mean, look, what his control over the Titans like was not gonna last very long? I don't think so.
Mm.
Like, I, I don't buy the fact that he couldn't bring everybody. And so the narrative goes that, oh, he left us behind.
Mm.
My thinking is it wasn't necessarily that he left them behind because he couldn't bring them all together. And you know, maybe there was some logistic issues. Like, we just can't get you across. We don't have a boat going into that during that time. You're stuck. Uh, I think it was a deal with the Tiber family
Hmm.
that, okay, you go live off your life in paradise, but leave us some of the people, some of the Eldians, and we can rebuild the Marley Empire. I think the reason that they were left there was to literally just be weapons, which is
Ooh.
terrible.
Yeah.
There's no different what they were doing before.
Of course, yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really good possibility. I definitely could imagine that being a thing. Because obviously we know that at least King Fritz and his ideology, it's very self-sacrificial kind of, or like at the very
Right.
least, very puts the blame very much on his own people as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So I could easily see this being the case.
And going along with that, maybe he just let the people stay because, yeah, it's atonement. We treat you Marleyans terribly. You know, here, have some Eldians to help you out to, you know, get you back on your feet. I could see the Carl Fritz mindset being like that. But then I wonder, why did the Tibers need to stay and be the head of the? Like, what was the purpose of that? Like, to, I guess, like secretly prevent the Eldians from coming back, maybe. But the way that the king left them, there was no way that they were gonna rise up again in any fashion.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know. To me, it seems a little fishy that the Tiber family be left behind and just live in the life of luxury, while the other people are just, you know, in the ghetto. And
I mean the I think it's pretty safe to say the Tiber ancestors were shitheads
yeah, I mean,
in some capacity.
in some, yeah, I think they gained favor with Fritz and let him do his thing. It's like, hey, we'll let you do this if we have a slice of a pie in a way or whatever.
Right.
And maybe that's how the Great Titan War was won in a
Yeah,
way.
and like, because we know that the eight titans, the eight titans that like everyone except for the founder, they were all warring against each other during the Great Titan War.
Mm-hmm.
That includes the Warhammer Titan, which
You're
was
right.
supposedly in the hands of the Tiber family back then as well. So
Mm-hmm.
they were supposedly just as greedy as all of the other Titan holders,
Yeah.
and so I guess it makes sense with that in mind.
I mean, I could be, yeah, I could be far off, and maybe there's someone who disagrees with me, and understandable. I just show it to me. Show me the proof that what they were doing was for the benefit of the world.
Yeah.
At least the Tiber, for example, for Fritz, you know, I feel like he generally thought what he was doing was for the best of
Yeah.
humanity. I
Yeah.
generally think that.
Hmm.
Um, but obviously, I have grievance against that. But before I get into that, I just want to say that Willie Tiber himself, I think he kind of acknowledges that my ancestors did nothing. You know,
Yeah.
the past 100 years, they've done absolutely nothing. But I, knowing the truth, knowing the past, I'm ready to do something. And so again, I respect Willie for that.
Hmm.
Okay, now Carl Fritz. I'll try to keep this quick.
Okay.
But the idea to isolate and place the sins of the fathers on your children is abhorrent. I just I
Hmm.
can't stand it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I understand not wanting to have war at all in that mentality, but just, you know, treating your people like these monsters who can't change and will never change. It just boggles my mind. He himself is the example of changing. He looked at it, it's like, oh my gosh, we're doing terrible things. And instead of trying to change his people, he's like, brainwash, we're moving everyone over there, and we're gonna just live out our days, just slowly die out.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I and look, I understand. I don't have the a modern day example of supernatural human beings, but to me, sending a whole human race just to die at an island eventually,
Hmm.
I don't know. It just rubs me the wrong way.
Yes. Yeah.
This fictional character rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah, but I love how worked up you get over this. I love it. And I mean, I agree with you. I do. I completely do. It's fun to hear it, though.
Last thing I'll say about it is, yes, you had the Great Titan War, but you could use that chance, that like winning that war, they could have changed the mindset of the people somehow. It kind of reminds me. I won't go into spoilers, but Vinland Saga in a way. I feel there's a victor in a certain war that happens, or a certain battle at least, and then potentially that the mindset of the people might change over time. I don't know. I'm still reading it, so I'm not entirely sure, but it feels like that the person who has won might be changing the beliefs and how his people act. And I feel like Carl Fritz could have done the same thing.
Yeah.
Without dooming his seed.
For sure.
But
yeah.
Anyway.
It would have been. I think it could have been a better option. Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, you wouldn't have the story the way it is if that wasn't the case. See, this whole ranting thing, like, what does it matter? Like, you wouldn't have the story you love so much if that didn't happen.
But hey, I mean, it's in these stories. Like, if you get this worked up about something, it means it's a good story. I think.
No, good
I think
point.
It means that you're invested in the story and that you care about the story and the characters in the story. And I think it's a good thing.
Thank you.
But onto the Eren Reiner scene.
Yeah.
In the cellar. Actually, so when I read that scene today, I got the feeling that Eren, I guess, lost his cool a bit for like a second, after Reiner told him that it was his fault that they breached the wall and that Carla died. Like, well, it was Reiner's fault. Reiner said that it was his own fault, and like that it wasn't because of his history or because of his environment. I have never gotten this feeling from that scene or from that page before ever when I read this part. Before I go into why and kind of how, is that something that you've picked up on before or today or ever?
No, I guess not. I haven't really noticed that.
Right, and obviously it's not. I'm gonna say before I go into this, I guess quote unquote theory, I will say that it's not something that I necessarily believe in like 100% at this point. It's just a vibe that I picked up on when I reread the Marley arc today, and I'm still kind of processing it myself. But basically, I feel like, or potentially, Eren went into that scene thinking that Reiner was a victim, and he even took back his words, like his earlier comment from, I think, the Clash of the Titans arc about wanting, wishing death on Reiner. He kind of, when Reiner mentioned that, he brought up that at the beginning of that scene, Eren told him not to worry about that. Like, felt like he wanted to take those words back, or at least it could be read that way. And then when Reiner told Eren that it was indeed his fault that the walls were breached and that Carla died, there is that panel where Eren could like Eren's expression could be read as an expression of shock potentially, because his eyes widen a bit more than they had been previously in that scene, and I feel like it's not too far-fetched for Eren to feel shocked by Reiner's words there, if we are under the assumption that Eren went into that scene not knowing that and thinking that Reiner was 100% a victim himself, or like, to his environment and his history. And shortly after that part of that scene, Eren grabs Reiner's hand and turns into his Titan, and I feel like that is an attempt to kill Reiner and Falco as well, like, I suppose, as a side effect. But
oh, really?
Why would he grab Reiner's hand when he transforms into a Titan, if not with the intention of killing Reiner?
Because it looks cool.
Like, because that is something that would kill, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yet at the beginning of the scene, he kind of took back his words of wanting Reiner dead. But I felt like when Reiner admitted to being the reason for Carla's death and for the walls being breached. And when Eren, and when that potential shock was shown in Eren's face, something switched inside of Eren, so that he changed his mind. He didn't necessarily think of Reiner anymore as 100% a victim. At that point, he lost his cool and he wanted Reiner dead again, just like he did back in before the time skip. At least that's a way that I've chosen, or that I could see this scene being read as now, that I had never seen it as before today.
Right. That's interesting. I never saw that as a trigger per se, or something that came as an incredible shock to him. But I could definitely see it as being something that instills hostile nature into him. But I do like how he says after that, as you're shaking his hands, he's like, you know what? I was right. We are the same. We just keep moving forward. And the story, or how he confesses, basically does imply that Reiner kept moving forward as well.
Yeah.
Despite everything that happened, he kept going on with his mission. So, in a similar sense, despite everything that was happening there at that moment and everything that Eren experienced, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna keep moving forward as well. I'm gonna go with this whole to kill all these civilians and killing Willie and all that. So yeah, I mean, there could be something to that for sure. I also think Eren could have known that Reiner was going to transform. It's not like he had a death grip on him.
Fair, yeah. I mean, sure, but still, like it was definitely wasn't for sure that Reiner would make it out of there alive, and definitely not for sure that Falco would.
I guess not, but maybe Eren understood that he had the plot armor Titan. It's like he'll be fine no matter what.
Yeah, but I kind of, even though again, I'm not convinced that this is like the case necessarily. Although I do like this idea,
sure,
and I like it especially because it would show a desperate side of Eren that we don't really see much of after the time skip. Especially not early on after the time skip. It's not really until, kind of the very end of the whole story that we get to see more of a desperate and kind of uncollected side of Eren. But if this is Eren kind of losing it a little bit, he does a good job at hiding it. If this is the case, but still, if he changed his course of action in that scene because of what he heard Reiner say, I think that's still a pretty emotional thing of Eren to do in this, like especially for it being this Eren, like this version of Eren, I guess. And I like that.
I think that he definitely had the possibility of doing what he did, but maybe he was keeping his options open. But honestly, more so than what Reiner said, although to your credit, I think that could be part of the driving force, to go with it. I really think it's what Willie was saying. He was definitely listening to both Reiner's conversation and Willie's speech. There's that, and I had this in my notes. There's that page where you have Willie talking about, I wish I was never born, and at the end, I wish I'd never been born. And you see Zeke, he kind of looks over behind his shoulder, kind of symbolizing Zeke's mentality. And then Willie says, but I was born into this world, and because of that, I want to live. And then you see Eren, and that's because that's his mentality.
Exactly.
And then Willie goes on and basically says, so because of that, we're declaring war on parody. And then he kind of gets a somber, or I think he closes his eyes and he's kind of like, yep, this is how it has to be. And then he decides to do it. So, but like you said, maybe Reiner's confession there also kind of pushed him towards that direction.
Right. Yeah, it could definitely have been a combination. Then, what happens then from Reiner's and Falco's point of view, at least, how obviously Reiner protects Falco and himself by doing a kind of Titan transformation that is a very special kind of Titan transformation that we haven't really seen before. And I'm not talking about the unarmored one. I'm talking about the thing before that where...
Oh, the fingers.
The fingers. Yeah. It's like... That's more fingers than two hands should have. I counted the fingers, and I got it to 11, at least, on one of the panels.
It's like a flower.
Like, it is. It's very much like a flower. And it's like, is did he only create hands and like fingers? Like, is that all that he created, or is there more under the earth? Like, is there a whole Titan under the earth? Like, I
I don't
guess
know.
maybe it doesn't really matter too much, but still, that's a really interesting transformation that he created because it's unlike anything we've seen before. I think at least I can't think of anything that's kind of in that vein.
I wonder if it's similar to when Eren half transformed way back in the beginning
Well,
of the story to
yeah.
protect Mikasa's army. Obviously, it's not. I'm just thinking of the similarities where someone is transforming to protect someone. Because usually when you transform,
Mm.
the heat is going to kill the person, right?
That's oh yeah, that's also a good
Mikasa and Armin
point.
didn't get hurt, and neither did Falco.
True, that's actually a good point as well. In that way, I think it is similar. Yeah, that is a good point, but it's different in the sense that Aaron's transformation then, and also his transformation when he picked up the spoon, with Levi and his squad.
Oh yeah,
Like
the spoon.
those two transformations from Aaron were like partial transformations. They were
Hmm.
actually like he created Titan
You're right.
bodies as they should be, just not the whole thing, kind of.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, this one by Reiner was like not actually
Right.
like a what it should have been. There were more fingers than there should have been on two hands, and
Honestly, things
yeah,
like that could be in someone's nightmares. To be honest.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's kind of beautiful, but at the same time, kind of creepy.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, it's just so fascinating that this is such a one of a kind instance. I feel, and it reminded me of the. I think we refer to it as looking at like a music album artwork. It's from the last volume. I think it's the second to last chapter, or maybe the third to last chapter. Well, it's one of the last chapters anyway. Right before Armin transforms into his colossal titan for the last time, and he's standing in the hands of
Mm,
Xaver's
Ram
Beast
Titan.
Titan, Ram Titan,
Hmm.
who in turn is standing in the hands of Bertold's colossal titan. So that's also kind of the thing where like fingers outside of fingers, kind of. Obviously, it's different, but it reminds me of that. And I don't know if it's intentional, but it's also that kind of flowery, as you said, that kind of flower visuals, kind of in a sense, with fingers instead of petals.
Hmm. I think it kind of furthers the flower symbolism or the uses of flower imagery
Mm.
in Isayama's, well, at least in the Attack on Titan work.
Yeah, yeah, totally, absolutely. And then obviously there is the unarmored Titan, or at least partially unarmored Titan that Aaron or that Reiner transformed into after that, which is also an interesting occurrence. Uh,
Hmm.
but yeah, yeah.
I know we just talked about it, but chapter 100 is one of my favorite chapters. Just how it ends, but also the build up to it all, and
Mm,
it's such a great way to, cap off 100 chapters of Attack on Titan. And
yeah.
honestly, the volume 25, or I think it's 25, is one of the best volumes. It's my favorite volume in this collection.
Ooh,
Um,
that's such a hard thing for me. I don't think I could give an answer like that. I'm just gonna say that.
mhm.
But yeah,
Well,
that's cool. That's
I
cool.
can,
Nice,
and
nice.
it for me it definitely is the high of an arc that has a lot of highs,
Yeah.
um,
Mm.
and I absolutely adore it. And so yeah, chapter 100, amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it's 100% worthy of being chapter 100.
Hmm. Zofia Udo's death is way messed up.
Uh-huh.
Like,
Yeah, both of them
but
really.
they're both really, they're kind of like a precursor to the rumbling.
Yeah. Oh yeah, actually that's a good point.
So, you got the piece of the building falling on Zofia, which is, oh gosh, absolutely horrifying with the lake stick. Oh my gosh, it's
Mm.
just, and they cut back to it multiple times. Like,
Yeah,
stop.
yeah, they do too many times.
And anyway, but that would happen in the rumbling. People get squished by the rubble.
Yep.
Um, and then obviously Udo being trampled over by feet
Yeah.
is obviously what the rumbling's all about.
Yeah, yeah, honestly, I guess
So
his
yeah,
death is even more just kind of in your face about that kind of.
yeah, absolutely.
he
Anyway, really messed up.
Oh yeah.
I love the line where Galliard's freaking out because the Survey Corps is not afraid of Titans. Like, you're
Yeah.
supposed to be afraid of me.
Yeah.
You guys are the real devils.
I love that.
It's so good.
He's just too full of himself, and obviously also shows his inexperience with dealing with the Survey Corps.
And then lastly, I can't not mention Sasha's death. Sasha dying is truly emotional, and I think it hurt a lot of people still to this day.
Yeah.
I mean, I think now a lot of people just cope with memes. Yeah. I just posted a meme in the Discord server, so go to our Discord server and you'll see some great memes. But anyway, I think the scene is pretty well done, and it gives motivation for a lot of things that happen to Gabby.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
so good.
Great stuff.
Great stuff comes of her death, so
yeah,
makes me appreciate her death.
I'm sure great things would have come of her long life as well.
I'm sure, or I guess I'm not sure actually. I'm sorry, Sasha fans. I'm sorry.
But either way, she was a great character.
Yeah, absolutely. She's great, and I'm happy that we're still able to get glimpses of her in the flashbacks that we get throughout the early parts of the in this last chapter of this arc, but also in the War for Parity arc.
Yep.
And on that, I love the scene where Hanji and Levi they have their first meeting with Yelena and Onyankopon after they recently arrived on Parity, and where Yelena and Onyankopon are kind of just telling them, or maybe it's mostly Yelena, but I think Onyankopon is there too. They're telling them about basically Marley's capabilities and their technology and their army and all of that kind of stuff. And there's a moment in that scene. Well, there's a lot to love about that scene, I think. But
yeah,
one thing I especially like is it's a small moment between Hanji and Levi where they're sort of communicating without any words. It's when Levi is just thinking oh, you shouldn't flinch, or you shouldn't give off those sorts of signs. It'll make you look weak. and Hanji is I know, but they're only thinking it. But I just love how just through these little glances or little faces or mannerisms, they can kind of read each other so well, and I think it just shows how close friends they are, and I just think it's really sweet.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a funny scene too because she doesn't really hide it.
No.
I know, but it's just oh, they're in the air.
It's so funny.
Yeah, pretty great. Another funny scene in that chapter. There's a lot of learning going on. I mean, the seafood chapter was pretty great too, or the part with the seafood's great.
Yeah.
But I just love the line where Sasha just goes to Jacopo and she's like, "Why are you black?"
Yeah, it's so. Sasha.
You can't just ask that, Sasha.
But it's so innocent too.
It's so innocent.
It's oh yeah, it's so good though.
And Oyakopon is like, oh well, our creator thought it would be great if we have people were different and things that are unique. And he just plays it off so well.
Yeah, it's so cool. Oh my god,
Oyakopon's so great. He's so cool. I want a best friend just like that.
I kind of regret I didn't put him in my at least honorable mentions. When we did our top.
I didn't
characters.
Either.
Because he is worthy.
Yeah, he's a great person. I wish he had more in the story.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of characters, a lot of things to cover.
Absolutely. Yeah. And my last thing on the contents from the chapters is in that last chapter when they have the big meeting where they're discussing sort of how trustworthy they think Zeke might be. Eren points out what they could do with Zeke's help, having having a person that is a Titan and also of royal blood on the team, quote unquote, being that they Eren literally says that they could then use the thousands of Titans in the walls to crush the world to dust. He says that straight up like that. And again, it's easy. I think it's easy to not take him for the word, to not,
Yeah.
But that is exactly what he supposedly meant. And it's just funny how there are these several little hints across the story before it actually happened that seem to point pretty strongly toward it, but when you're in the moment, it's kind of like, well, he probably didn't mean that literally. But yeah, it's just a funny thing like that.
Yeah. You know, and I debate if he knew at that point that was going to happen. I mean, he knew something, right? Because he
Yeah.
was trying so hard to find a different solution.
Right.
Well, trying so hard. Like he wanted to give everyone a chance to find a different solution, and he's eventually he yells to Hanji, he's like, "If you know of a better idea, please tell me."
Yeah.
And yeah, so that whole situation makes did he know about it completely or not? I'm not sure.
Well,
But
well, in that moment when he says it in this chapter, like the last chapter of this arc here,
uh-huh.
it kind of almost looks like his eyes are shining. Like it's not. I don't think they actually are, but like at least he has like a gleam in his eyes, kind of. When he says that, which makes it, well, I guess it gives it a sense of importance, kind of, which I had never picked up on before today. But it's interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, anything more on the chapters of this arc?
If you don't fight, we can't win.
Oh yeah.
That scene with Eren in front of the mirror is iconic.
Mm.
But I also like having Mikasa and Eren both sharing or understanding that mentality that they've grown up with since they were young.
Yeah.
And it does kind of play into how it goes, and it acts as kind of a motivation for both of them to keep going.
Yeah, and like, this is such a hard time. I think especially for Mikasa and Armin.
Yeah.
Like obviously it's hard for Eren too. Like in a like you see he's carrying the whole burden of knowing that he will destroy the whole world. And
Right.
obviously that's rough, but for Mikasa and
That's
Armin,
rough,
this
buddy.
part of the story, it is indeed. My first girlfriend turned into the moon. Anyway, yeah, no, it's like it is rough, and but I think what's so rough for Mikasa and Armin in this moment is the fact that they don't know what's troubling their best friend,
You're right.
and like that's really rough.
Yeah. Armin's like, I feel like I understood Eren more than Mikasa did, but now I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tragic to see both of them just kind of in the lost. And then we get the infamous scene in the next arc, which just adds to the whole what is going on and what has happened to Eren and everything.
Yeah.
Some dark times ahead.
Yeah, I'm super excited though to read the next bit of the manga, because that's the part that obviously we've covered a lot of it on the podcast before, chapter by chapter, but I've never read the coming part of the story in bigger patches. I've only read it like chapter by chapter, like month by month. I had never reread any of the future of the manga from here on out as several chapters in one go. I never did that. So I'm very excited for to move on there.
Absolutely.
In the two coming months.
And not just that, but we're gonna be hitting the part where we started Titan Teatime.
Exactly. Yeah.
In the next arc.
Indeed. Yeah.
So it's basically coming full circle.
Can't wait. Which the anime just recently, or relatively recently, got to that point as well, with getting to two brothers. But also, I guess last thing from the books that I want to shed a little bit of light on is the Attack on School cast gags that we got.
Yes.
Obviously,
oh my gosh.
At the end of the books, with
this is so good.
The first two had like the cleaning product, like it's like a drug kind of. It's so funny.
His name is Eddie.
And then the whole drama, like with Historia and Eren, that starts after that.
So is she considered like a tsundere? I mean, I don't think it's like romantic feelings or anything, but she's like, oh, I want to apologize. Like, you're stupid or whatever she's saying. Like,
yeah, she wanted to make it like set things right, but then when it came down to it, she couldn't even. Yeah, I guess you could say she's a tsundere. They really are funny. I really do love those.
Absolutely.
Bits. And like, there's so much to them, especially like these later volumes. Yeah. There's so much content in there.
Yeah, and not only that, but we in the manga and now in the anime, we see Goth Mikasa and Otaku Armin.
Yeah.
Like they are there, especially the anime. Like they're up. It's kind of hard to miss them. So it just makes me wonder if there is going to be any sort of connection to the in the anime adaptation.
Yeah.
This is a spoiler cast, so we already know how it ends, and
Mm.
with the volume including the fake preview, I guess the fake ending.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if they're gonna throw that in at the end of the anime, whether it be done within this current core, or if they're gonna have an OVA or a movie or something.
Mm.
I just wonder if they're setting up that, because why else show the Goth Mikasa and Nerd Armin like that?
Yeah. I mean,
I-
it could just be an Easter egg for the manga readers potentially.
I guess.
But I also love the idea of putting it as like a post credit scene for the
Yeah.
either the final episode or the movie, if they make that as the finale, would be
Right.
a lot of fun. Although for the anime onlys, it wouldn't have as much weight to it. I suppose if that just suddenly, because admittedly the bit that they appeared when Aaron entered Paths was very minor. So if suddenly there is that post credit scene, maybe it would be a little strange for the anime onlys.
Maybe strange, but I think it would. The way I would take it,
True.
it emphasizes it. Well, no, it emphasizes that final scene, that is actually connected, because as Aaron says, oh, do you really think that happened all those many years ago or whatever? Or was it Armin? I can't remember. One of those two.
Right. Mm.
I feel like, yeah, it actually is part of the canon ending of the series. So if you have that animated as well, I think it's considered canon.
Yeah, that's fair, I suppose. Yeah.
Although, hey, I would not mind seeing the Sana stuff as well, because I know a lot of people are excited about that.
Absolutely.
Which there
Yeah.
is a Sana scene in Attack of School Cast, or however it's
Right. Precise. Yeah. Well, was it you that pointed that out in the Discord?
called. Yeah, I remembered it. I was like, oh,
Right.
wait, yeah.
Yeah. Right.
There's a whole scene about that.
Yeah. Because I had only recalled the artwork, like for one of the
Right.
alternate covers things.
Which,
But
to
yeah.
be fair, it's definitely referencing that artwork. However, there is that part in that alternate reality. Or it's not alternate. Anyway,
Whatever it is.
Whatever.
But yeah, I mean,
we're going pretty long. That's my bad, as always.
well, I mean, it's probably my bad as well. But moving on to the last bit of the discussion, our favorite character arc throughout these books. Go.
Oh, hands down, Reiner. Like, you can't tell me anybody comes close to the growth that Reiner had. A close second is probably Gabby, kind of the start for her, but I think she gets more of it in the next one.
Oh yes.
Well, I guess Gabby or Aaron, I not necessarily character growth, but just how he comes in and everything he does. And I guess he is a different person. It kind of has a different mentality as well. So I like that too. But definitely Reiner is number one for me.
I am pleased to hear it. Yeah. I mean, okay.
You better not tell me not Reiner. Come on.
I will say
No.
Gabby, Falco, Peak, Magath, Willie, and Aaron
Uh-huh.
are all fantastic.
Yes.
But obviously, number one is Reiner, of course.
Okay.
Of course.
Okay. You scared me for a second there.
No, like, and I don't really know what else I could say. Like, I've said all I could say about Reiner, both in this episode and across all of our podcasts, probably. But yes, it's Reiner, and like this arc, he is the main character. There is nothing like enough said, I guess.
By the way, I think you just mentioned Peak for the first time in this entire discussion, and this is like her introduction. I think so. And which is, I don't know if we really mentioned her before. So let me just say, I think Peak's really cute, and I think she's great in this arc as well.
Yes, yeah, she absolutely is. But she keeps on growing, and for anyone who's shipping Jean and Peak, I guess we can be happy that Jean missed that shot that he had on her, that he tried to.
That was
take.
their first meeting.
Yeah, it was. So yeah.
Hey baby, I'll be the cart for your Titan. I'll be the cart for your horse. I'll be the horse for your Titan any day. There we go. I'll be the horse for your cart any day.
That's it. That's the one. Yes.
I said to stumble to get there.
You did get there though.
I did it.
Awesome. And then I think that's the note we want to end this episode on. So,
Oh, gosh.
if you enjoy our content, you can follow us on Twitter at Umami Manga, and it would be lovely if you'd like to support us by either rating our show on the podcast platforms or subscribing to our channel Umami Manga on YouTube. If you like this episode, please share it with anyone you think might enjoy it too. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time where we'll talk about the War for Parody arc, but that's just the next 4 volumes, so not until the end of the story. See you then. Bye-bye.
See you later. Good point prefacing that. We're not doing the entire rest of the story in one go. Heck no.
No. 8 volumes? No, thank you.
You gotta cut it off at some point. And I think 4 volumes in is a pretty safe place.
Plus, I think it's silly that the last 4 volumes are part of what is called the War for Parody arc, because the story isn't about the War for Parody anymore at that point. The focus is completely changed.
Right.
Obviously, it's a fan name, but Battle of Heaven and Earth arc. That's what I would call the final arc.
I like that.